I think I'm live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday Musings with Sara. My name is Sara R. Turnquis. I am a multi-published clean historical romance author, and I am coming to you from Middle Tennessee with my organizational manager and producer, Cindy Smith, and my writing assistant over here. His name is Blue. He is a very sweet boy and he enjoys assisting my writerness. I made up a word. How special is that? Uh, yeah, everybody can see Blue, hopefully, because he is much more attractive than any of us are ever going to be. He's super cute. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the importance of retreats. I'm going to talk about it from a writer point of view, but I also want to note here that from a mental health standpoint, which some of you may already know that I do struggle with a mood disorder, but taking time for yourself every week is important. But regular retreats where you get away from all the stress that you can, some of us carry the stress with us wherever we go, but getting away for a few days and just resting. But as a writer, it's also important to get away for a few days and spend time just thinking on inspiration, creative things, rubbing elbows with other creatives. So this past month in August, I did go on a writing retreat to this lake area in Alabama, and I went with a couple of writer buddies, and we chatted, fellowshipped, prayed together, wrote, read, all the fun things. But we also did some plotting. Some of you who follow me are probably aware that I have a book coming out in the next week, September 3rd. So next, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday. Love in Cripple Creek. It is the last book in the Cripple Creek series for those of you that are following along with that series. And for those of you that are not, you can find the first book in that series, Hope in Cripple Creek, on Amazon for free if you want to try it out on ebook, free on ebook. Or you can go to my website and get it as well. My website does have the lowest price on all of my products at any rate. So, with that book coming out, I am briefly between books and I have a couple of projects that I'm wanting to start. But we spent time at the retreat brainstorming with each other, but especially important to me was the opportunity to plot my book, my next upcoming book. And I wanted to talk briefly about the basic structure of the plotting I do. Some people are plotters, outliners. They like to know every little detail that happens in the book that they're about to write. And then some people are what we call pantsers. They write by the seat of their pants, if you will. They do no planning, they just sit and write and let it come. There's nothing right or wrong with either way of working. It's just the way that your brain works. And sometimes it's what the story calls for. As historical writers, there is some planning that needs to go in because sometimes you have to line up with certain dates and certain events in history. I can't change, well, fortunately or unfortunately, the way that history has gone. So sometimes I am bound by the series of events and the time span between them. But between the plotter and the pantser that I have described to you, there is a spectrum in between. So for me, I'm naturally a pantser, but I have found that if I spend time doing character development in a very basic, I mean, really basic skeletal plot structure, then that gives me a jumping off point for my novel writing. It helps things go smoother, faster, and I really know my characters. They're more three-dimensional for me, which allows me to make them more three-dimensional for my readers. So I am going to share my screen if I can, and I'm going to make it bigger. There we go. And I'm going to share with you a basic plot structure that we utilized at the retreat. How about I move it over here? Yay for lives. Okay, so if you can see, And again, we plot in 3 structures, but however, sometimes for plotting, thinking about it in 4 pieces is a little more helpful, because Act 1 tends to take up 1/4 of the novel. Act 3 takes up 1/4. So Act 2 is 1/2. And if you split Act 2 into 2 pieces, then each piece is equal parts of the novel. So what we have here is the basic. Again, there are several more plot points you could put in here for those of you that like to plot more intently. But basically, I look at the hook, which is that first part of the first act, of course, as you can see, that really grabs the reader and pulls them in. And then we have normal life, what life looks like for the characters before the story really gets going. The inciting incident is that event or that word or line or whatever that really starts the story off. It really introduces us to this way of thinking, to a new way of being, and to the protagonist's journey. And now the protagonist's journey will either increase their strength, help them overcome something, or create a change to the way that they think about something. And then at the end of Act 1, we have the doorway of no return number 1, which is where something happens that further sparks a change. And we call this bad because each end of the act is bad, bad, or baddest, if you will. That's a James Scott Bell terminology, but you can find it in many places as well. Act 2 begins with the introduction to the new world. Now, in fantasy, you might actually go to a new world, but what has happened in the doorway of no return is the main character has started on this quest, if you will. Again, that sounds very fantasy, but has started on this journey, if you will, into a new way of thinking, into a new way of being, into a new situation. So any of those things can qualify here, but that is the new world that the main character goes into. So we have the introduction to that new way of being, the main character's reaction to the new world. And then at the very end, we have the midpoint. This changes everything that we've seen up to this point. It is a mirror moment for the main character. It's also called that, where the character really gets a chance to see the lie that they've been believing and what that's done to them and what that looks like for them. So we call this batter. Now, Act 2B begins with the reaction to that midpoint and how the main character might be reeling from that experience. And it ends with the doorway of no return number 2, which is the baddest of the 3. So you have the event at the end of Act 1 is bad. The event at the end of Act 2A is worse. And then this is the worst that the character can experience before the climax. So that ushers us into Act 3, where we experience the climax as well as the resolution to the story, where the character is able to do something, be something, experience something that they couldn't at the beginning of the story. And the more you can show that to your, I'm on a totally different screen. The more that you can show that to your readers, the more complete that character arc will feel. So for these basic plot pieces and for further delving into structure and plotting, I would recommend James Scott Bell's Superstructure. I would also recommend K.M. Weiland's Structuring Your Novel and Outlining Your Novel. Those are also great. But Sarah Cannon at Heart Breathings, she has a YouTube channel that you can follow, and she talks a lot about indie publishing. She talks a lot about plotting and what her writer journey looks like. But you can find a lot of videos about plotting there. So a lot of what I've brought into my own plotting methods come from those places. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment section on either you're either seeing this on YouTube or Facebook. So please feel free to ask questions in the comments and I will answer them as I can. And if not, thank you for joining me and I wish you happy writing. and I'm trying to stop this, and it's not stopping.